Good morning, guys. So, I talk to a lot of moms who are so frustrated with repetitive, challenging behaviors. It just feels like day in and day out, they're just saying the same things over and over again, reiterating the same rules. Actually, if I'm being really honest, I'm that mom too, a lot of days. Um, we wonder, didn't I just tell you that? If I've said it once, I've said it a million times. Are you ever going to get it? How come I have to tell you that every single day? Why are we still talking about this? Those are all things that run through my head when we're dealing with our children who have repetitive, challenging behaviors. So I've shared before how I really have tried in the past couple years to have this radical acceptance for where our kids are. It was a really helpful mindset. I always do better when I just accept them where they are and then try to move forward rather than just kind of always, wishing that they were different or treating them like they should be different. And I've even done a whole video on that like should word and how we should just ban it from our vocabulary because all it does is get us into trouble. Anyway, so I was chatting with another adoptive mom who's also a therapist, and she shared this analogy with me that was really mind blowing. It rocked her world. Um, it really had an effect on me. And so she gave me permission to share it with you. She has a small farm and they are starting an animal sanctuary, which is like a whole nother cool video in and of itself, her family and her story. But they recently just added two baby zebras. Now, I'll just do a little aside here. If you're having a terrible day, YouTube baby zebras. There's no way you can still have a terrible day after watching baby zebras. Every time she video chats and shares her baby zebras with us, it's just the most precious thing ever. So, anyway, back to my analogy and to my point. When we think about zebras at the most basic, like animal level, even if you think about like your little kids or your toddlers, like how they think about zebras, what do they think? They probably think of them like black and white horses, right? I mean, I can't be the only one who has that like most elementary knowledge of large animals, right? They're just black and white horses who live in Africa. So, anyway, we know that horses are incredibly caring. They're really intuitive. They almost are like people in some ways. People get attached to them. We even use them in, equine therapy. They are so intuitive and can provide such a healing relationship for people who have come from trauma or or who have other special needs or high anxiety, all of that. Horses are just so resilient and they can be a phenomenal resource. As it turns out, zebras are really not black and white horses at all, and definitely not by temperament. They are the polar opposite of horses. So they are really anxious, they're skittish, they have a very very low tolerance, and they go to fight, flight, or freeze very quickly. In fact, they're fleers. So they run from danger. Like if they were in their natural environment and they had perceived danger, they would just bolt, they would run. And apparently they run very, very quickly and with a lot of power. So even these little baby zebras who don't seem like they would have all this power have pulled over full grown men when scared. And it's a perceived threat, right? It might just be grass blowing in the wind or something that startles them and they'll take off like there's an actual danger. So that kind of sounds like our kids, right? Sometimes their sense of felt safety, they kind of go into fight, flight, or freeze at the slightest little sense of danger, imbalance, just because, they've been through some terrible things and they're trained to kind of have this heightened reaction to perceived threat. So anyway, my friend was sharing with me how, she knows this about zebras. So as she's trying to train her little baby zebras to have a little bit of a higher tolerance around people and not be quite as skittish, but every day she has a ton of patience with them. She moves slowly about them. She uses a certain kind of voice. She is aware of how they are perceiving their environment around them in case they might perceive a threat. And she also never expects her zebras to be any different than who God made them to be. They will always be a little skittish, always be high anxiety. She never expects them to become horses, right? So anyway, one day she was out with her zebras and it hit her that our kids from hard places are a lot like zebras. They need us to be aware of how they're perceiving their environment. They need us to be slower and pay attention to our voice and our tone and have control over all the things that we do. And our kids, sometimes we're treating them in a certain way, but we're thinking it's just for a time. We're thinking, I'm going to do this until they find healing, and then I can kind of treat them like the rest of our kids, or like neurotypical kids or normal kids. And she realized that she doesn't think like that with her zebras. That's why she has so much patience with them, because she has the expectation that they're going to be exactly who they are all the time. She doesn't expect them to become horses. And she was convicted to think about her kids and to think, our kids, with all of their experiences and the changes in their brain because of trauma, may never be horses. They may always need us to treat them more like zebras. And she realized that she was okay with that. Just like she's okay with her zebras being zebras, she needed to be okay with her kids who had different challenges to be more like zebras, even though she's got some kids in her family that are more like horses. And success for zebras is different than success for horses. And so the same thing applies to our kids and their needs. So I just want to be really clear that this is not a blanket excuse for our kids to treat us however they want or act however they want, for you to tolerate disrespect or poor behavior. But I think it gives us a certain amount of compassion and extra patience to help our kids. And it's a simple mindset shift that can really help us support our zebra kids more effectively. Hey, Dawn, I'm glad you could join us. So anyway, I hope that that's helpful. I hope it makes sense. I'd love to know what you think, or if it didn't make sense, maybe I can say something that would help it make more sense. So go ahead and comment below and just let me know if this little horse and zebra analogy resonates with you, and maybe let us know how many horses and how many zebras you have in your family. And then maybe once you qualify them in that way, then it will help you be better equipped and better able to treat them in a way that will best serve them and set them up for the most success. So I hope you guys are having a great day, and reach out if you need anything.